But so now it's going to backfill and it's going to say, okay, well, I inferenced something that I don't have enough compute on here to assess. So I'm going to backfill, connect to my local on-prem or a bigger chip or a bigger set of memory or storage, wherever it is, on my actual device that's a little bit closer, still on-prem, still local, and do a little bit more crunching. It's going to say, okay, well, this is either a green or a red. I can say, this is a person I know. I'm okay with that person. This is a person I don't know. I'm not okay with this person. I don't know who this is, and I need to understand more. And so then it will say, okay, well, now we need to go up to the cloud. And so all the way through this cycle, it's spinning up larger machines for bigger workloads, when in reality, if it's just a dog, you don't need to spin all that stuff up.
Welcome back to Making IT Happen, the podcast by Sims International. I am extremely excited with the guest that we've got joining us today, all the way from San Diego, I believe, stateside. We've got a chap by the name of Robert Wolff, who is founding partner of the devEco and founding partner at devEco Consulting. I first saw Robert when I was at the Edge AI Foundation in London. They had a show down in London last month, and Robert was the MC for that show. And as soon as I saw him on the stage, the energy, the passion that he had around Edge AI, and the way that he was trying to bring kind of a developer community perspective on what Edge AI was all about and how we're building Edge AI, I just thought, you know what, we need to have this guy on our podcast, and we need to have some of that energy for our listeners to be able to enjoy. So welcome, Robert. It'd be lovely if you could give us a little background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hey Sam, thanks for having me here, and hello everyone. This is a great opportunity for me as well, and thank you for the kind words. I had a lot of fun actually over in London. I don't get to make it out there so often lately, but this was a great trip, and I had a lot of fun. That was my first time actually up on the stage doing an MC type role. I've given lots of talks, stuff like that, throughout my career, but this was actually my first time introducing others as such. Don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of live streams and things like this in the past. But yeah, so me, Robert Wolff, I've been in the industry for roughly, somewhere between 10 to 12 years, because I did spend some time in academia early in my career, where we did a lot of course development around technology. It started off at Coursera, if anyone's familiar with the online learning platform Coursera, where we were one of the first courses that actually required hardware as part of the curriculum. And so this was a really interesting time back in those days when you'd take a course and people would be required to buy hardware, or at least to request hardware from the program. And so we had a fun time doing that. After there, I went to a company called Linaro. Linaro was all about trying to reduce the redundancies and fragmentation in the Linux on ARM space. And so if you think back in the day, there's several x86 chips, right? So you have Intel, you have AMD, right? But when you think ARM, you think lots and lots of different chip vendors. And so how do you reduce those redundancies? How do you get Linux just working on all your ARM chips? And this was kind of one of the problems that Linaro was out to solve, and since then has pretty much solved that problem. You got ARM pretty much everywhere now, especially in terms of the software story that is involved around ARM or built around ARM. From Linaro, believe it or not, I ended up going to ARM. So I worked at ARM for about 5 years there. So Linaro was about 4 years. ARM was in about 5 years. And throughout this whole time, I kind of, really adopted the whole entrepreneurial track. And so I was always building companies on the side, and I was always kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And my whole mindset kind of was really built around community. So while I was at Linaro, I was building these developer communities. While I was at ARM, I was building these developer communities, which eventually ended up turning into developer programs. And there was all sorts of fun to be had there. And that's where I kind of think I started to hone in on on my specialty. And so when you saw me all excited and passionate at the Edge AI London event, I want to say it's not just because I was passionate about or am passionate about Edge AI, but I'm also very passionate about how they've been building their community. And so when I saw Edge AI, I landed in their Discord server back in November of 2024, and this was right around their name change. So they did a whole rebranding from TinyML Foundation to the Edge AI Foundation, and I said, I got to go check what's going on here because usually when they do a big branding, a big name change like that, I think maybe they're into some exploratory activities. Maybe they are kind of like testing the waters on a few things, and so I said, let me go see what their ideas are for their community. And so since then, you're talking about almost 2 years now. I've very much enjoyed how the leadership team and how the folks at the EDGI Foundation, their consortium of partners, have taken their approach towards building communities.
Amazing. And yeah, that was perfect because you haven't disappointed because I set you up. I set you up and said this guy's full of energy. This guy's going to bring the passion, and that was exactly that. And yeah, really, really interesting to learn about your journey and kind of how you got to where you are today, and how I saw you kind of up on that stage MCing. And I just kind of wanted to just rewind a little bit because you might not actually be aware of this, but I don't think we've spoken in length about Sims, but we're actually traditionally a memory and storage distribution, a distributor for components. So 37 years we've been going now as that's the backbone of our business. That's the core of our business, memory and storage components, working with a number of vendors and a number of manufacturers across the globe. And actually, more recently, and some of the people viewing this and some of our followers would have seen this on LinkedIn and yeah, some of the stuff that we've been putting out there. We've kind of pivoted a section of our business. A small focused team of us have been working specifically around Edge AI and how we can help kind of how we can help in the Edge AI space from a hardware perspective. So that's kind of how we found ourselves at events like Edge AI London, at Hardware Pioneers, at these kind of places where we're trying to interact with, people in software, developers, or anyone that is working in specifically the Edge AI space. And I just wanted to kind of make that very clear because we're going to be speaking about Edge AI a lot during this chat, and I didn't want it to get kind of lost on some of the people that are watching this who have traditionally seen us speaking more about memory and storage and other elements of the business.
Let's relate it. Let's relate it to memory and storage. Let's make sure it's related to such.
Well, I don't know if I want to talk about that. Do you know, 18 years, 18
Yeah.
years working in memory and storage components. I love memory and storage, and it's a big part of who I am, and everyone knows that. But this has been super exciting for me. This has been really new, really fresh, and just doing something a little bit different. Of course, it's related in many ways, but speaking to new communities, meeting new people, and understanding a new technology that's really making a difference out there has been really fun. So let's kind of get into it. I just kind of wanted to start off, kind of setting the scene a little bit, just starting from the beginning. And a question I wanted to ask you was, why exactly is Edge AI gaining so much momentum right now?
This is a great question, right? I mean, people kind of wonder in many cases, say, Robert, like, why aren't you focused on robotics or why aren't you on like that's Edge AI? Like every single thing right now that people seem to be excited about folds under Edge AI. And what I boiled it down to is I think threefold. One, and me as a gamer, right? I'll kind of like use this as the lens here. You always kind of look at games or things that are happening in the space and technology and the things that we consume, both the things that we're building, as to whether or not the hardware is there or the software is there, right? And for the Edge AI space, it seems as though we've finally caught up in terms of the hardware. So the hardware has caught up to what the software capabilities are. And so this is where you're going to start saying like, okay, well, can I implement this LLM or SLM? Can I implement this onto this piece of hardware? And for the most part, we're starting to see people able to actually implement their ideas onto a piece of physical hardware out at the edge that they weren't usually or traditionally capable of implementing before. And this goes into the second part. which is that these models are becoming more and more efficient, more optimized and more efficient. You get companies like Edge Impulse, where you think of what we were capable of doing on servers, 2, 3, 4 years ago. These same quality models are now able to run on a much more resource constrained device, and so this pushing of these models that have been more optimized, that are running in the exact same way. They have the same abilities that you used to require a server center for, and now they're running on edge devices, and it's because of companies that are coming out here and optimizing them and making them able to do so. And then finally, the last thing that I would say is privacy. So it's really relevant right now with all the privacy, the regulations, compliance that is happening around the world, that various things be kept on premise or away from the cloud. And so in this compliant world filled with lots of regulations, and rightfully so in many cases, um, companies are forced to actually explore these things a little bit deeper. And so they're looking at and they're saying, okay, well, hey, is it easier for us to put all sorts of really crazy security implementations, get lots of stuff figured out on the cloud, and maybe that still doesn't work? Or, hey, you know what? All the problems are solved by making sure that we are building on-prem or in this secure state, secure place at the edge, and not backloading all of this data up into the cloud, rather analyzing it on site. And so this, I think, is why we're seeing such momentum in this space right now.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And is this something that's been changing over the last few years? Is this something that's kind of really come into light over, you know, the last few months? How do you see that this has progressed, and when did this start happening? When did edge AI start being a term that was thrown around so much?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that it's something that's been happening over the past few years. Again,
Hmm.
I use this company as one of the benchmarks, Edge Impulse. So Edge Impulse, which was recently purchased by Qualcomm, I can't say how recently, but they function under Qualcomm now. And this is one of the first folks who you kind of like started to see implement these models on these edge devices better than you would see before. And so I would say that it's something that's been aimed at for quite a while now. But I can't say exactly when that happened. For me personally, I only just started getting like diving in deep into the whole generative agentic AI stuff, this movement as it's been happening over the last roughly 2 years. And so since then, I've noticed that alongside the Edge AI Foundation, you're actually kind of starting to see these trends move with the foundation itself. And so a lot of it has to do with the foundations like Edge AI, putting forward these strong and knowledgeable companies, mixing these companies with academia, industry, and then of course the community pool of developers, bringing these folks together and figuring out, like what does this stack look like? Because no one really owns no one company owns this entire stack, and so figuring out like what the stack looks like, which people or companies that are being a part or playing a part in this stack are in fact moving towards the direction that I would say is taking us to where we need to go. But yeah, I mean, it's been multi-year. It's been decades in the works, right? I mean, I saw
Right,
an
right.
interview with Steve Jobs, and again, like who really knows what you all think about Steve Jobs, but the guy was sitting there getting scrutinized by why he purchased this company Siri, right? With the whole Siri thing that happened. And they were saying, "Oh, so you bought like this search engine. You bought this." He's like, "No, no, no. I didn't buy a search engine. I bought what I think is going to be the next AI, right?" And so this was a long time ago where he was predicting this whole AI movement, right? You're talking about AI again, Siri working on your phone, in my opinion, Siri on the edge, whether it taps the cloud back then or now, but it's been a long time in the works.
Sure. And I think with you being kind of at the forefront of this collaboration and this community, you keep mentioning community, and I think that's really important in this because, as you just touched on, it takes so many different experts from so many different areas to actually guide this to where it needs to go. And I think that's something that, from what I could see when I was in London with you guys, that the Edge AI Foundation did such a great job there of bringing so many experts together from different areas. Um,
Yeah,
I
actually, so
think.
so Oh, sorry, please. I'll let you
I
finish,
was
please.
I was just I was just going to say I think quite a few people, and I'm talking, anyone on the street now, probably feels like they're starting to understand what AI is. They're starting to understand what AI means, but I think it's strictly from a software perspective in most cases. They understand, or they maybe don't understand what a model is, or a large language model, but they understand what it does and what its purpose is and what it's been built for. So I think we need to try and kind of educate as to why the edge matters and what problems edge AI solves. Is that something you're happy to go into, or
Yeah, I
kind
can
of
go into it a
try
little
and
bit.
go into?
I can go into a little bit, but to touch just a little bit on the last kind of comment that you
Sure,
made regarding the Edge AI
sure.
Foundation, and I think just in general companies coming together. So I shared a link here. If you could put it up maybe in the post production, the Edge AI Foundation has been doing a really great job at putting together these certification program courses. So this is a curriculum that actually we at the Edge AI, sorry, we at devEco Consulting help them build, and have been really proud actually at how they go about setting this curriculum forward, because it's not just, hey, a bunch of folks getting together and saying like this is what it should be. It's actually kind of done in these modular stages. And so you get people putting it together, and then it actually goes through rounds of reviews in academia, then it goes through rounds of reviews with experts in the industry, and then it kind of comes back and goes through these iterative cycles that, in my opinion, really brings forward a curriculum that touches kind of all of these areas. And so, when you think like high level, getting familiar with a wide breadth of edge AI related topics, these certification programs that they've been putting out have been really nice to see. It goes everything from introductions to edge AI, generative AI, agentic AI, and of course, there's a generative AI on the edge, agentic AI on the edge, physical security, physical AI on the edge, and so all of these courses have been pretty nice. With regards to problems that Edge AI is solving, I kind of mentioned it earlier in this, but one of the main ones is going to be privacy, right? So when you have stuff locked down on-prem or on-premise, or something locally that you are tapping, this could be an LLM that you have set up locally on your factory floor, right? When you're collecting data or when you're analyzing something, it taps your local LLM and before it decides whether or not it needs to go backfill anything from the cloud, and or whether or not it even does that at all. So keeping things secure on-prem, locally done, locally analyzed. This is where I think one of the big privacy aspects come into play. Your user data doesn't need to leave and go out anywhere else. There's no man in the middle attack surface. So there's things like that. The second thing is latency, right? And so when you think like factory floors, a factory floor, and you have some robotic arm that can literally just destroy a human being, right? These things can't depend on a back and forth trip to the cloud. And so when it is doing these I want to say tiered assessments as to whether or not something is in fact in its way, or if there is any interference, or whether a human in the loop needs to come into play in some way, shape, or form. It could be handing packages off. It could be some form of maintenance. How can you be sure that that robot arm, that dangerously heavy robot arm that is swinging with immense force, will not strike a human? And it doesn't mean to strike a human. It has fail safes and security mechanisms built into place. But if it had to take that trip back up to the cloud, what if there was a disconnect? What if something happened and then it's just like, flipping around in circles for 3, 4 seconds, right? These types of things can't happen, right? And so this is where, I think local edge AI, physical edge AI has to take place. And then for, larger tasks, right, where humans can't be injured, back up to the cloud for things like that.
Mm,
This
mm.
also goes to automotive, right? So, I mean, automotive, think about it, right? You can't have those trips to the cloud for split second decisions where you might accidentally run a stop sign or hit someone because you didn't have the amount of time to assess something. I want to say bandwidth costs are another big one. So when you think about all of the stuff that's happening at the edge, things that it has to analyze, you could save some money in terms of bandwidth costs. Also, save some just overall packets, right? When you talk about not having to process so much going up to the cloud, and I think probably. last but not least, when you have a good on-prem system, when you are working and you're building out these robust systems for these factories, for farms, for anything like that, you have a reliability sense. And so, there is a more consistent workflow. It's not, again, being held back by something that has to be backfilled into the cloud, analyzed, and then brought back. If you're building these systems and they're built robust enough, I think that they can be considered to be more reliable as well. I hope that answers your question. I'm not diving like
Yeah,
super, super deep. I'm trying to keep this at high level enough.
no, high level's great. High level's
Yeah.
great. We love high level, but I think, yeah, to all of those points, I think, you know it's in the name, right? Edge. All everything
Yeah.
you've mentioned there is bringing the workload, bringing the processing closer to the thing that's closer to the sensor or the robot arm or the camera. So it's bringing it over to the edge. So I guess, yeah, that all of the reasons that you've mentioned there are reasons that they're the kind of conversations I've been having with people since I've been started talking about this. Latency, absolutely. Security, absolutely. Another one that comes up a lot actually is connectivity.
Yeah.
So particularly if, like you mentioned, farmland there, or if you're working in a very remote area where you don't have a
Mhm.
Wi-Fi network, you don't
The
have
little camera.
5G.
The little
Um,
camera there. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I wanted to show you something. I'm listening though.
that's all right, no problem. No, I was just saying. I think for me, yeah, the final the final thing that we speak a lot about is not having access to a network. So
Yeah.
if everything's being done on the edge, on premise, where that might be in the cab of a lorry, that might be on a tractor, it could be anywhere in a remote location. As you said, all that latency, all that really important stuff's happening right there on the edge, and there's no doubt that the connection is going to go down and cut it off.
It could be limited connectivity, right? Like maybe at the end of the day, right, it gets connectivity in patches or certain parts of
Yep.
the day where it does some learning throughout the day, and then all that learning gets passed up to the cloud for some more extensive, crunching, some more extensive, runs up in the cloud, and then let's go kind of iterate from there and make our systems more robust or more local, our local systems more robust. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of like touch on this. And this is something that I think also is a big deal is power, power
Yep.
consumption. You mentioned workloads running at the edge. And so inferencing is a really important aspect of Edge AI or Edge in general. So like, I don't know if any of you all have seen this camera here. So I'm going to kind of try to get you to see it here with the light. So this is the Open MV camera. Okay. This was built by actually a friend of mine, Kwabena Agyeman. He's the CEO of OpenMV. It has an Aleph Semi chipset on there, among other things. But this camera is one of the things that reminds me of why Edge AI and local or edge inferencing is so important. So, you got to think about like imagine where you have this camera in front of your front door at your house, right? And it's going to pick up dogs, cats, sounds, cars, and then, of course, the inevitable person coming to your door, right? Well, if it picks up all of these things, but all you really care about are a select group of these things, well, then at what point does this small camera inference? It's always inferencing, but now it's what point does this small camera say, okay, the compute on this particular small camera that uses very little power is not enough to do what I need to do. And so what it will do is it will backfill and then it will, let's use one that's actually more relevant. We'll use this one. It's fine, whatever. Just this is an irrelevant board. But so now it's going to backfill and it's going to say, okay, well, I inference something that I don't have enough compute on here to assess. So I'm going to backfill, connect to my local on-prem or a bigger chip or a bigger set of memory or storage, wherever it is, on my actual device that's a little bit closer, still on-prem, still local, and do a little bit more crunching. It's going to say, okay, well, shoot, this is either a green or a red. I can say, this is a person I know. I'm okay with that person. This is a person I don't know. I'm not okay with this person. I don't know who this is, and I need to understand more. And so then it will say, okay, well, now we need to go up to the cloud. And so all the way through this cycle, it's spinning up larger machines for bigger workloads, when in reality, if it's just a dog, you don't need to spin all that stuff up. And so inferencing at the edge is also very important. So these edge AI workloads, it'll say like, okay, well, I can run some edge AI on this little device, right? Just enough to tell me whether it's a dog or a cat or a human. Now, if it's a dog, cat, human, red list, green list, okay, well, now I need to go and backload, spin up more compute, backload, spin up more compute to the cloud. And so these are also things that I think are very valuable in the space. It's a huge energy savings, but also so inferencing at the edge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great example. Yeah, it's almost like a gatekeeper when you're trying to get
The
hold of
gatekeeper.
someone in a
Yeah.
business, right? It's like,
Yeah.
can I put the call through or can I not? I'm doing the work
Yeah.
at the gatekeeper, so the CEO doesn't have to deal with this person.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
By the way, I
no,
need to
love
speak to
that.
the Sim CEO.
You absolutely do. You have to come over and meet him.
Yeah.
You'll get on so well. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess we've kind of covered a little bit about the fundamentals of Edge AI and kind of why why we have it, where it came from, and what it's trying to do. Um, but everything that we create as humans and everything that we look at, I guess, we work on them to solve problems. Okay. So I'm going to go into a couple of questions here, and you can answer them how you like. But my first one is what problems does Edge AI actually solve? And my other one is where does it specifically outperform cloud AI? So Edge AI versus cloud AI, and what problems do they solve?
Yeah, so I think that this just kind of it echoes and builds slightly further on the earlier questions. So we talked about some of the problems where we say like latency is a big deal, privacy is a big
Hmm.
deal, bandwidth and reliability. One of the things I would say like where does it outperform when you think about like always on sensing? Okay, so always on sensing, right here, this is always on sensing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's always on sensing at a low cost, inferencing at the edge at a low cost. This can involve things like your home Alexa or your home Google where you have waking words, right? These waking words are things that allow the state of the device to stay dormant, using low power, and then boom, it activates upon a waking word. Possibly anomaly detection when you think like out in the forest and you're trying to catch poachers. All right, well, it could have a sound detection where anomaly detection where it hears a shotgun, right? Or
sure.
saws trying to cut down trees. So these types of things I think are very, very useful. The other one that, diving deeper into kind of those four categories or five categories that we talked about is we think about the real time and these safety critical actions, right, or decisions that a device has to make. And so when we look at the real time ability can only have low enough latency at the edge. You can't really guarantee that will be achieved by pinging the cloud and going back and forth. So and
Yeah,
not only that, you could get a dropped packet, like a packet going back and forth. Something could go haywire, and so making sure that or looking at the real time and safety critical decision making power of that. So it's like where does it outperform or where is it most important? Um, so also I would probably say like you want to also consider what the capabilities are of uh, these edge based models. So while in many cases, we're getting models that are capable of doing so much now at the edge, the hardware seems to have caught up. Companies are coming out with these models, these optimized versions of these models. At the same time, it's always still important to consider and to think about when does the cloud come into play, right? And so it's not about saying cloud gone, right? Though maybe one day, right, you have just this whole process or state where everything is on the edge. I don't think that is anything in our direct arm's reach, but cloud still does have its role to play. And so making sure that when you're thinking about this is like always thinking about when does the cloud come into play and how it will optimize your entire workflow or how it will optimize your entire system rather than hurt it. And that's where I think the big focus needs to be when you're building any sort of edge AI or physical AI application. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Did I
brilliant.
answer that one?
Absolutely, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, and I guess kind of the crux of that is we still really need both. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they're not actually competing at the moment. They're
No.
kind of they're harmonizing as we
Yeah.
move. because you're always going to need that backup. You're always going to need that cloud-based system, but we now have the edge to do a little bit more inference before it gets there, and a little bit more of the legwork before it makes decisions. So yeah, no, really,
Yeah.
really good. Um, just thinking about some real world applications. Um, and I know you've probably got loads and loads that you can
Uh,
think of, but are there any particular use cases that are creating kind of the biggest impact today, and which industries are leading the way?
Yeah, so one of the ones that I've come across quite a bit and would like to see more of, possibly underdeveloped or needs just a little bit more work. And again, this is me because I've seen enough of it to be like, whoa, this is pretty cool. But predictive maintenance, okay? So when you think about like a factory floor, when you think about like us taking a step away from some of the dangerous machinery, but also still needing human in the loop for various repairs and things like that. I've started to see these vibration measurement devices, right? So it measures vibration, it measures sound, it's hearing things, it's looking at things, but it's also measuring the vibrations of things. And these subtle changes in the vibration of a machine can be interpreted as needing fix in some area of that machine. And
Yeah.
so I think that predictive maintenance is a huge thing. I mean, this is a camera, right? But I mean, imagine you had
Hmm.
these little like, nodes on a machine and that's spinning at high speeds, or a robot arm again, once again, going back to that one, where like all of a sudden you start to, it in your car, right? Like when you hear something going on with your car, you're like, something's wrong with my car. But before it even gets to that point, right? There may
Yeah.
have been vibrations that were not that to the naked ear we could not have heard. Yet if we had that predictive maintenance inside our cars, we might have been able to prevent it from getting as far as it did, with less costs, more safety for the human being driving it, and the likes. Another thing is vision at the edge, right? So, again, going back to this whole idea here, I mean, you're starting to see a lot more vision applications. In fact, I almost can't go to like an embedded world or a CES without walking through an entire, auditorium filled with just screens and my
Yeah.
face showing up with squares around it. This is where like I'm starting to see people come up with, these geo grids, showing like, people who are traveling along these certain grids or setting up geo grids and understanding things that are happening within this certain area of space that the camera is monitoring. Again, I love the whole inferencing at the edge argument where, I've seen so this right here, the sensor is actually not on the camera. The sensor is on this device. But I have heard, where actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, the sensor is a camera. A camera is a sensor. But I've heard that inferencing actually has now been put as close as the camera. So imagine like the camera had its own inferencing, and then also this device had its own inferencing. It would have one backfall or backfill, and then it go back. So like finding ways to truly bring that edge AI capability to as close to the inferencing edge as possible. Healthcare. So there are these like radar sensors that are out there where you can put them inside elderly homes without compromising someone's dignity, without actually recording someone with a camera. It can actually sense heartbeat and breathing and movement over time. And so this is an edge device that stays on-prem, ideally locally, for the respect and privacy of the people that are having their health monitored. And these types of applications, I think, have a long way to go, where we're actually able to tell people how they're doing. We can monitor large groups of people and their breathing and all of these types of things as to whether or not they need to be interfered with, and also just studying them to make sure that we're giving them the right care. And this again, all locally, right? We don't want this to go up to the cloud if in ideal situations. And I think last but not least on this list for me would be smart audio. And I don't want to like go into this too much, but I really love kind of where audio is going. A lot of people will argue with me on this, but smart audio where you're actually able to transcribe audio correctly. I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and I've used DaVinci, and I've used Apple, what is it called, the Cuts or whatever it's called. I've used all these editing softwares, and you always get transcripts wrong. Transcripts are always messing up. OpenAI released this tool called Whisper, so you can go through like the OpenAI platform, and you can use their Whisper tool, send it in, and this is like something you can run locally. So like you can actually pay to tap the OpenAI API, or you can literally run Whisper locally. It's good enough to run locally, and so like I run it locally. I'll take big old batches of media. I'll send it there, get the transcripts in different formats, and then I can use those transcripts to build knowledge bases. So, for example, what we're recording here, you could actually
Mm.
go send it to Whisper, get that transcript back, engineer yourself a nice, awesome, prompt, and then come up with a way to turn all of your shows into a knowledge base. And then that knowledge base, what do you use it for? I mean, it could be used for all sorts of applications. Stepping slightly away from the edge AI aspect, but if you apply it to the edge AI side of things, well, you're analyzing voice like on the edge because I was able to run this locally. And so this is where I think things get very interesting. Understanding what people are saying, you don't know what someone's intent is, and so intent is a big thing. When you think about a big room, okay, like a big room that needs to be air conditioned, okay, someone walks into that room, okay, well, to spin up an air conditioner or to turn on these lights like takes a lot of energy. But if someone walks into this room and puts their laptop down and opens their laptop up, well, now their intent is most likely to come back and work in this room. Whereas if they just walked into this room for a second, lights came on, and then they walked out, it's like, okay, well, is he coming back to this room? He or she coming back to this room? It's like, probably not, or maybe not. So maybe we don't need to turn on the air conditioner. But so intent, right? And so leveraging these I think advances in smart audio, advances in vision, and let's call it vision at the edge, to assess intent. I think that's kind of like one of these things these solutions that I'm liking that are coming out that I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, I'm loving that, and that is ultimately creating impact. That's exactly what it's doing because it's
Yeah.
it's that intent and that kind of forward thinking and that guesswork is what's making everything smarter, everything easier, everything more efficient. No, it's a great example, and I think
I kind of did touch, sorry, I kind of did touch on the
sure.
industries there, right? Like health and automotive. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, no, you've absolutely covered. Yeah, and I probably agree with a lot of those. I think for me, one of the most eye-opening thing that I've noticed since I've started this journey into Edge AI is how much of an impact it's having on lives and saving lives and safety and making, human detection and stopping people, like you said, getting struck by a robot arm or getting hit by whatever it might be. Or I think the safety aspect and even as you touched on there in healthcare, you know, what this having this much power at the edge and having the ability to train these models and to learn and to run this inference at the edge while you're, in theory operating on someone or whatever you might be doing or trying to detect something in someone. I think that's the bit that really kind of struck a chord with me. And I really thought, you know what, this is kind of something that's really making a difference. It's a really, really it's a really nice thing to be involved in. No, but that's great. I just wanted to kind of stepping away from purely hardware. I know we've mentioned inference, we've mentioned software, we've mentioned models, but it's thinking about building the ecosystem itself, and how hardware, software, developers, and partnerships, how they all kind of come together, and if there's any barriers that are kind of preventing wider adoption, or if you've seen how they've all been working better together more recently. Just yeah, kind of the migration of software over to hardware, and what have you seen in that area?
Yeah. So, when you think about, like, I want to say like an end-to-end solution or a product, right, that is built with Edge AI in mind or as part of its functionality, um, you have to think about the entire stack. Okay, stack all the way from the hardware level, runtimes, models, tools, everything, right? The domain experts that you may need to tap in terms of seeking support while building this whole thing out. Um, and so, as an entrepreneur myself, I have it took me a while in my early days of, starting companies and building things to realize that I'd rather own 5% of something than 100% of nothing. And so what you end up right now for me particularly, I go back to an example, and I've mentioned this on another interview. Is a friend of mine back in the day. I don't have one on me, but he held up a pencil, right, and he says, "Robert, believe it or not, this was many years ago. It was like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago."
Hmm.
you know, like no one in the world can build this pencil on their own. And silly me right away, I'm thinking like that's stupid. Of course I can build a pencil, right? But then, he just kind of sat there and I was like, well, okay, the lead, the paint, the wood, the rubber, the metal, shaping it into the form that it's supposed to be in. It's like, well, I would need possibly a tool. I can't build that pencil, right? Like, well, who built the tool that I need? Like, how am I going to source
Hmm.
all of this stuff and get it into, it's like, and so, you know, when you think about putting together this a product, right? You need to think about the ecosystem as a whole, and you need to think about who the industry or who the experts are, the domain experts, or SME, subject matter experts for those particular components of your stack. And so, even sourcing a piece of hardware, right? It gets quite complex because then you dive into, okay, well, I have this developer device. This is a developer kit, but the developer kit may not let me get all the way to product, right? So now I know I have this developer kit and I've decided what software stack I want on, what models can run, whether or not I'm capable of actually, porting to some higher upgrading this piece of hardware in case my workload gets bigger. But now, how do I source the supply chain, right? So that I can actually build a product, right? And so making sure that you're attuned with all of that. And so this just is one little aspect for me. Supply chain off limits. Like I sourcing hardware and stuff. Like I need to rely on people. And so
Mm.
when I think about this whole ecosystem, I start to really converge and look at consortiums like the Edge AI Foundation, where I say like, where can I go that has all of the people in a single room that I can start sourcing the different layers of this stack out to, and saying like, okay, well, yeah, no, this is a great device. I want to use this device. They have a series of developer kits that allow me to upgrade in case my workflow increases or downgrade in case it decreases. And then, okay, well, great. Now, the run times. Let me go pick out my run times. Let me go look at which models I'm going to use. Let me go look at which camera devices. And so, like once you start kind of like adopting an ecosystem, which I think the Edge AI Foundation has done really good at pulling this ecosystem together, and it continues to grow, you stand a better chance at getting to further points in this entrepreneurial journey, or the journey of the product you're trying to build. This can be for other companies as well, but I mean, for me, I think that companies come in, they say in consortiums like this, in ecosystems like this, they come in and say, well, what's the standard? What's the thing that everyone has that I don't need to waste engineering efforts on, right? This just becomes that standard block. This becomes the neutrality across different companies. We don't need to reinvent that wheel. We don't need to waste engineering power on that, right? But what's the secret sauce that gets built on top of that? And this is where I think like consortiums, these ecosystems come together, and you start to see the companies accept, appreciate what that foundational layer looks like, help each other make that foundational layer very nice, very robust, and then they get to focus their efforts on the secret sauce, that thing that gets
Yeah.
built on top. And so us as developers, as entrepreneurs, as people building products, we get to go in and say that layer, okay, great. I see all these companies, you put all your greatest minds together to build that layer out. I trust that, right? Okay, now let me go pick out what the secret sauce is and look at what y'all are developing that actually is tailored to my product. That's why I
Yeah.
really like yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's a case of everyone's an expert in some area. Like instead of you trying to go and be that expert, let's talk. Let's build a community. Let's work
Yeah,
together. Let's help each other
yeah.
out.
Yeah, what do they call it? Like the what is it? Master of none, or master of all? No, sorry, jack of all trades, master of none, right? And so you kind of need there to be that jack of all trades
Mm,
layer. Everyone's pitching in together, right? But then y'all can be your masters at master at whatever it is that you put on
yeah.
top.
No, I love that. So I'm just going to float something on you actually, because this is something that we've been talking about in our we call our team, by the way, Intelligent Solutions. That's the team at Sims. There's four of us who are working together on this project outside of memory and storage. Um, so something we've been thinking about recently, I'd love to get your opinion on this, is because I don't know if it's a problem, I don't know if it's a bottleneck, I don't even know if it's a thing, but we're talking to a lot of guys in software, we're talking to a lot of guys in DevOps, we're talking to a lot of startups, we're talking to businesses or people with fantastic ideas who are really smart and they've built these great software platforms and software programs with this AI and this inference and these models that are designed to do something incredible and make a difference. But they're software experts, they're software businesses, and they don't know anything about hardware. So that's where we're kind of thinking we might be able to position ourselves as someone who can help them to source, deploy, scale, whatever it might be from a hardware perspective. So it got me thinking, what's the bottleneck? What's holding them back? What do they need? And I guess these guys, they've got the idea, the concept, they've built the software. So do they need something to run that software on? So what do you think about kind of a hardware loan evaluation program or something like that's designed for startups or people that are building these systems, sorry, building these models, but they need something to run it on, but maybe they don't have the budget or they don't have the expertise or the capacity to go out and get themselves a dev kit or get themselves a system to run it on. Do you see value in that? I'd just be really interested to get your perspective.
Yeah. So in general, um, I would say that it's less about a company not having the budget, right? It depends on where you're aiming, right? On the cycle. Okay. So like, you have very the people with first of all, ideas, there's 999,999 people will have ideas, and maybe half of that last person actually is a doer, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
like making sure you're targeting the right place, giving someone a leg up who has an idea doesn't automatically turn them into a doer, but like, you want to definitely be approaching the circles of people who are building things. This isn't to say that, like only focus on super founders and the people who have proven their worth, but like, you do definitely want to kind of like be in the place where the doers are. A hardware kit, I'd say that's less of the problem. It's more so establishing, or Sims establishing themselves as that place where you can get that full stack experience and you've done your sort of assessments. So like with devEco Consulting, what we do is we specialize on offering a series of audits, and we call them our readiness level audits. So you can go in and understand what your technology is, your go-to-market strategy, your developer experience, even all the way down to your social media, readiness. And we have a grading of 1 to 9. This is your grading, your readiness level for that particular thing. And then from there, we can assess whether or not you need any bespoke services to get your mission complete. Okay, what are your KPIs? What are your OKs? What are you trying to hit? What does success look like for you a year from now? Okay, great. Well, we can't even tell you like if we can hit that success unless we understand all of these things and understand how ready you are so that we can get you to that point. So when it comes to like choosing a hardware, I mean, think about it, right? Like even within the AGI Foundation across the entire globe, when you're going and you're looking for a piece of hardware to use, I get messages from, I feel pretty reputable folks, decision makers in the industry saying, "Hey Robert, I'm trying to do this thing. What piece of hardware should I be exploring? What piece of hardware should I use?" And so like when I start to see all the specs that they're looking at, I say, "Okay, well, I can make an educated guess that either that piece of hardware doesn't exist yet or here's your closest bet." Right now,
Mm-hmm.
from there, this is where I think maybe Sims could stand a chance. Like you're talking about, like some hardware testing program or some hardware initiative, but also making sure that you've done the due diligence and said, like, this is kind of the things. These are the things that this hardware developer kit, we got it from here. This is why. This is the stack we recommend adopting, and this is like the models that run on it, and these are the token usage, or this is how good, this is how optimized it's going to be on here, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Those are the types of things I would probably say, uh, because it's the space right now is so fragmented, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you're talking about fragmentation across the hardware, fragmentation across the software, fragmentation across everything. Everyone's trying to build their own thing, right? Now, at some point, you're going to see, and you already are kind of starting to see where things are starting to come together, the pieces start to fit, and the stack can be built by, these different entities or pieces. But when I look at like where this adoption maybe hits some snag is in lifecycle management, right? So choosing the right lifecycle management tool or service where you can update and fix 10,000 devices at a time. If you're putting 10,000 devices out there, right, you need a way to update that thing safely, or all of these devices at once safely. And so in the last year, roughly a year or two, actually, it's been for a long time, right? But when you think about for this last year or two that I've been doing at least this stuff, These lifecycle management companies, there's a lot of them. Some of them are focused around security. Most of them should be focused around security. Some of them are focused around, like making sure that you're able to really hit the lowest layers of the stack and make sure that you can update it from there. The possibilities are endless, but I think lifecycle management is a big thing. And then I would say the last thing is looking at your skills gap because you have embedded engineers, you have ML engineers, AI engineers, and then making sure that there is some crossover there, making sure that the people who are able to do both or that understand both well are rare, few and far in between.
Mm,
So if you're trying to
sure.
launch some program like this, you want someone that understands both of those areas very well and knows how they cross where they cross.
No, that's
Again, like
great.
my mind went a little bit nuts on that one. I think I kind of went all over the place, but yeah, I mean, like all in all, it's understanding the fragmentation, making sure that you are building for your customers or
Yeah,
showcasing what you're talking about. This program needs to be showcased properly. You don't want to give them a million choices. You want to choose this one and tell them why and how it scales or how it changes and how you can help them change it. You want to make sure that you're looking at lifecycle management because most people aren't looking at just putting out one device. They're looking at thousands of devices, tens of thousands of
yeah.
devices, and how do they update these? And then the skill gap when you're building this out.
Yeah, it's been a lot of learning. It's been a bit of a discovery phase for us. Like I said, we have pivoted somewhat
Yeah.
and what we traditionally do. So it's just finding our place and finding what I don't. This isn't about us just trying to sell product, trying to box shift, trying to move it from A to B. We want to add value. Yeah, it's almost like distribution as a service. We want to add some value to your business. We want to help you. We want to be involved in the adoption, be involved in the deployment, plug you into the experts, through communities or through vendors or through manufacturers, the guys that can really add some value to your business. So no,
But
that's great. And
the opti for you guys is making sure that your memory and storage is included in the story.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
The
makes
icing on the
sense.
cake,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand. They go hand
It's
in hand.
good. It's good. And but that's a good thing to focus on because I mean,
Yeah,
like you are building out opportunities that include you're providing value to the industry, so you deserve value back. And I think that that's a good move. Yeah.
perfect, perfect. So just looking ahead, let's keep this one relatively brief. Let's just try and be concise. I know it's going to be difficult for you and I because we like to talk, but let's think 5 years ahead. What do we reckon Edge AI looks like in 5 years? What do we say?
Ah, yeah. I'm kind of like a I don't know if I'm a conspiracy theorist when it comes to this, but I'm on the record talking about if you're familiar with Ray Kurzweil. So I'm going to take two tracks here. Ray Kurzweil is this like world-renowned prediction guy, predictor, and he predicted such things as like, the smartphone. He's made dozens of predictions over time, and I don't know that he's been wrong. If anything, very, very close to not being just right, but still very right on the cusp. Um, so he traced the evolutionary tracks of humans and technology, and he found a convergence point in 2029, 2030. And this is like the singularity moment that I believe he calls it. So singularity, what does singularity mean? Is like for me and from what I've gathered is it's the moment where humans can no longer control the technology that they've created and thus need to integrate technology into themselves to control that technology they created. And so this singularity is like human immortality. The way yeah, I just connected. I say, okay, yeah. So if I'm integrating technology into myself to control the technology I created, okay, well, is this the cornerstone of human immortality?
Mm,
So this is where I say like 2030 is a big marker for me because I believe AI is going to continue to exponentially grow. I believe that we are going to hit a point where, and we already kind of are to control the technology that we've created. We need to integrate technology into ourselves. When's that time where, we start to get these augments? We're already kind of building out, smart glasses that tell us how to fix a valve and things like that. It's getting there. And then this is the rabbit hole that I connect this to is there's an article that came out called AI 2027. And if you go through this, they predicted pretty much starting in 2024, 2025, everything that's going to happen leading up to this thing they call Agent 4, which comes out in 2027. Agent 4, and again, this is where you're going to have to draw really weird lines to, but Agent 4,
mhm.
if it comes out in 2027, what does it take for me to just go up to Agent 4 and say, hey, solve human immortality? And in 3 years, it tells me, okay, yeah, there, humans are immortal in 2030, fulfilling Ray Kurzweil's prediction. And so now we have this Agent 4 that helped us get there. So that's like a really weird abstract version. Now, looking at what I was more realistic and down to earth is that, AI is just going to become invisible, right? Is like we're not going to be calling it edge AI or edge AI application. It's just so baked in 5 years from now that the word no longer needs to be said. Everything is using AI. Everything has become smarter, and where we stand in the equation, I think is something that my personal focus has been aimed at when it comes to like my companies, and that's data sovereignty. So I think data sovereignty is going to be a big thing that needs to be observed. So when you think about like the data era, which happened in the end of the 90s, going into the 2000s, everyone's running around saying, "Hey, Facebook is free, MySpace is free." I don't know how old you are, but MySpace is free, Facebook is free. And in reality, it wasn't, right? Like they were harvesting our data. They still are harvesting our data. It's quote unquote free, right? So all of this data then got taken and by all these companies, Google, et cetera, et cetera. And then these LLMs started to form. People started to make these products out of it. And then now we're going back into another data era. Okay. And so in this data era, we're going to be heading into physical AI taking a lot of jobs. Okay. And so I'm going to get a little bit darker side of things. What happens when you don't have, sorry, when you want to work, there's millions and millions of people who want to work. They're fully capable, healthy, like ready to go to work, but there's just not enough jobs out there for them, right? So governments are going to have to come up with base income plans, and there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be all sorts of different ways, but the disparity across socioeconomics, the socioeconomic divide is going to become a lot wider. And
Yeah,
my theory behind this is that the data preserving or trying to find more data sovereignty over the next few years, the next 5 years, is going to help people start to hopefully monetize things that belong to them to begin with. So, I mean, imagine if there was some royalties every time some of your knowledge gets tapped through Anthropic or gets tapped through OpenAI, right? Like, imagine if there were royalty tags to the things that you had, right? And so, like, you could actually pay that subscription to have access, but yet at the same time, I'm being compensated for my data. Artists and creators and people are being compensated for their data because they actually do own it. And so this data sovereignty layer that I believe is going to be something that should be focused on. It protects both people, but it also plays into the better economic situation I believe, for the world, where people want to work. Okay, well, great. Stop taking from them. Stop taking and let them monetize the things that they deserve to monetize, so that everyone can get, even if it's a smaller piece of the pie, like it's okay, like like
mm-hmm.
they earned that. And then then you can start thinking about applications where like I'm selling Dove soap to my great 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 granddaughter because I love Dove soap, or instead of Facebook selling Dove soap to my great great granddaughter that I never used, right? So I don't know. This topic I could go into forever, right? And I could
Yeah,
talk about edge AI, talk about this, but physical AI at the end of the day, right? Like you're talking about taking a lot of jobs because you're talking about autonomous driving, you're talking about factory work, and so physical AI, for me, I hopefully does persist and does grow, and it will. But also, there are people that are thinking about the data sovereignty side of things and helping
yeah.
those who will be out of the job find ways to monetize and make money as well.
Love that, and I think that showed the energy that I mentioned at the beginning. And I knew we were going to get some of that. I knew we were going to get some of that. And just like me, you don't understand the word concise. So, but that's
Yeah,
fine because neither do I. I
yeah,
don't do concise. I yeah, on and on and on and on. But no, that's great, and that's kind of looking at it from a number of different angles. And
yeah.
like you
Too
said,
many probably, but yeah,
I mean, we used to have someone similar to the guy you mentioned called Mystic Meg. Probably not, probably not quite the same. She used to like pretend to guess the lottery numbers and stuff like that. But
oh wow, oh no,
it'd
yeah.
be nice sometimes to have a crystal ball, wouldn't it? And just have a little look and see which
Who
route
was
it
the
is
one who
taking.
who's the one who would take a letter and be like, and then tell you what was in the letter or something like that? I forgot. There was a show that did
Uh
something like that. Yeah,
there's been a good few of them, haven't there?
yeah,
But that's no, that's really really good. I think that rounds it off really nicely actually, and that's food for thought. That's food for thought, and some we love a bit of conspiracy. And we love a bit of kind of thinking outside the box, and yeah, looking at the edge, looking in from the edge. There, that was a
yeah,
nice link, wasn't it?
yeah.
So yeah, I think you've got a busy week, haven't you? With
Quite the
devEco, what's going on this week?
Yeah, yo, yeah, thanks for asking. In the whole effort of data sovereignty, right? So, since we're on the topic, we've identified I want to say somewhat of a gap when it comes to the developer ecosystem. And it just so happened devEco stands for developer ecosystem. But when I refer to developer ecosystem in this sense, I'm referring to all of the developer communities across the world, not just, our developer ecosystem. And so when you look at developers, they're always trying to kind of find a place to be, to exist, to
Yeah.
build value and to contribute projects and showcase the things that they're capable of doing. And throughout history, or at least throughout the last several decades, you find these platforms come up. These platforms are enabled for folks to do these things, and they can build projects, write blogs and technical articles, and they're capable of showcasing these in a very nice formatted way. Um, but inevitably, at some point, one way or another, these project platforms end up getting absorbed into something bigger. Call it acquired, or messaging shifting towards something in particular that one company wants that maybe the world doesn't agree with, or everyone doesn't necessarily agree with. And so what we did is we analyzed this, and we kind of understood that there might be a bit of a gap here. And how do we
Yeah.
create a situation or a place where developers can feel confident and trusted that the things that they're contributing to this ecosystem um, lives beyond not just the people who created it, myself and my partners, but also themselves as well in
Mm.
the open source space. And so what we did is we built a federated open source project platform called devEco.io. And devEco.io is quite literally intended to be a place for developers to build out a portfolio, and to feel like they're investing into a platform that stretches beyond the traditional sense of what we're used to, meaning that we don't expect companies to come in and be able to buy this, right? We've built it in a way to where it's federated. So buying this platform doesn't really mean as much as it should, because if someone did take it, then we could just, if I died, if the servers went down, we have instances up that decentralize the ledger, the content, so that it just sparks up somewhere else. If our platform went down, we spin up a new instance, and it's all there backed up in the open source space. And so in this sense, developers can feel trust, and they can feel confident when they contribute their projects and create this portfolio, that it will last throughout their career, and that someone can't just come in and say, okay, yeah, now we're focused on this thing. If you're not building this thing, then your projects aren't getting visibility. We don't care about you. You're not an opti for us, right? Well, everyone's an opti in this space, because you're building what you want to build, and you're building your portfolio, and who knows what's going to come up next year. No one knows the future. So you could be building for the best possible thing in the world, right? That's coming
Mm.
up. You wouldn't have known that if you were building for a platform that just has rhetoric and messaging pointing you towards something that only they want. And so yeah, it's called devEco.io. We're going to be launching it at Open Sauce this week, so we'll be over there. It's live now, so you could go check it out. But we will be having some really fun contests launching. I think some cool stuff that will be involved around the launch itself. We'll be doing a live stream on the 19th. Look forward to showing you all that. But yeah, keep an eye on devEco.io. Keep an eye on our LinkedIn. Keep an eye on our socials, and I guess maybe you could show something like that. Share some links in the description.
Sure. Yeah, of course, of course. We can
Yeah,
definitely do that. And that sounds good. And obviously best of luck to you guys with the launch. I hope it goes really well.
thank
Um,
you.
I've got an idea for some promotional stuff that you can take with you. You need to
Let's
get
hear
a
it.
pencil. You need to take a pencil with your name on it, a Robert Wolff pencil, and then you can
Yeah.
tell everyone the pencil story, and then they'll never forget you. They'll
Oh,
never. They'll be like the
it's
guy
a
that
good one,
told me the
right?
story.
It's a good one, right?
But
I mean, like, yeah,
yeah, I love it. I love it. No, that
yeah.
was great. But honestly, thank you so much for your time. Like that really didn't disappoint. I knew like I keep saying, I knew you'd bring the energy, and it would be really. In fact, being completely honest, these usually last about half an hour, and I don't know how long we've been on, but we've definitely gone way over that.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't think that people are going to be able to switch off, because
that's nice.
it's been so interesting and engaging. And yeah, we really do appreciate your time, and wish you all the best with the launch this week. And we will catch
Thank you
up
for your
soon.
time. Yeah, thank you for your time. I
Cheers, Rob.
appreciate this. This was great. If there's anything else that comes up, feel free to ping me. You're welcome to share my LinkedIn and stuff in the description as well. Open to meeting people of like minds or conflicting minds that would like to discuss fun things.
Perfect. We will do. Absolutely. You take
All right.
care. Have a good week.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.